And that's the problem, Jesus is King. We've been dreaming big, making plans to fulfill our big dreams, but we fail to realize that God has already dreamed for us. Look at somebody and say, what are you dreaming for? Jeremiah, the 29th chapter, the 11th verse, I promise you, I told you, it's going to be short, informs us that God has already dreamed for us. God has already made plans for us. He has already carved out the course of events that we should take, the path we should follow. There is a route that's been predetermined. It's, hallelujah, it's been predestined. The reservations have already been made, sorry, without your input and without your approval. God was thinking about you long before you ever thought about him. You were chosen without an option. Nudge your neighbor and say, neighbor, baby, I'm chosen without an option. His purpose for your life was divinely orchestrated. You wasn't an accident or a coincidence, but you were created for the purpose of God. Somebody asked the question, then how do you know, Pastor? How do you know that I was chosen? Because God chose you out of 500 million sperm cells. There was 500 million people trying to be you. Now your existence didn't start when your mama and your daddy got together, but it predates your conception. He had previous knowledge of you before you ever was given a name. Before the doctor, hallelujah, said that you was a little girl or a little boy. Before you came out of the womb, Jeremiah says, God knew you. Before the process of conception, God had already had plans for you. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, he has plans for you. Let me do justice to the text since I'm boring you. Jeremiah the priest, Jeremiah was a priest, was called by God to be a prophet who was responsible for writing the book of Lamentations and the prophetic narrative that bears his name. He gives us an eyewitness account of the horrific events that befalls a nation of people who was declared as God's elect. Now, to understand his election, you would have to travel back to the book of Genesis, where the writer conveys to the reader the role that God plays as the creator of the universe. And him, God, being the individual who initiates contract with humanity. From Genesis to Malachi, we are able to see this fundamental truth. God establishes a